And so speakers today, obviously I'd already mentioned Matthew. You can read his biography there. I'll do a proper introduction to him at the end of this presentation. And again, my name's Quentin Randall. I'm the Interior Region Coordinator for Farm to School BC. I grew up on a small family-run farm in Saskatchewan. I spent my summers digging potatoes, pulling carrots, shelling peas, shoveling grain in the fall. As a adult, I've helped small food producers in Alberta and Saskatchewan expand their operations. I've helped assist in secure funding, and I have over 15 years experience facilitating collaborative community development initiatives in Alberta and now in BC. So that's me. Before we start, I want to acknowledge today that I'm presenting from the traditional unceded ancestral territory of the Ktunaxa and Secwepemc peoples and the chosen home of the Columbia Valley Métis. I'm over on the far east side of British Columbia, near Invermere, BC, if you know where that is. Been living here since 2022. In my previous lives, when I was younger, I've also lived on Treaty 7 and Treaty 4 territory, on the traditional lands of the Blackfoot, Kainai, Piikani, Stoney Nakoda, Tsuut'ina, Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, and Lakota people, pretty much on the Canadian prairies. So Farm to School BC is a provincial food education program administered by the Public Health Association of BC. Our mission is to bring healthy, local, sustainable food to the plates and minds of kindergarten to grade 12 students across British Columbia through an innovative regional hub model. Since 2007, we've established ourselves as a trusted partner to BC schools, both funding and supporting their efforts to explore and promote food literacy and hands-on learning experiences. Our initiatives have empowered educators, engaged students, and strengthened school community connections. We support diverse projects that prioritize healthy local food, hands-on learning, and school and community connectedness. We encourage schools to pursue initiatives that best serve their own unique needs, and we do our best to support when and where we can. About Farm to School BC. So we've been operating for about 18 years now. We have assisted over 374 farm to school programs across the province and have engaged over 53,000 students over those 18 years. So, you know, obviously pretty active, had a pretty broad impact across the province. As we are a provincial organization, we have coordinators invested in communities across the 5 health authorities. Our coordinators, you know, including me and other ones who are here today as well. We work with schools and community to develop, support, and sustain educational school food programming. This is just a couple examples of the type of school projects that we have funded or supported in one way or another, including resource development and professional development events. One thing that we are well known for is our annual granting stream. And so here's a couple high-level impact stats. So again, you know, 374 schools funded since 2007 and over 53,000 students reached. This year, we had a new record of 146 applications for our funding programs, which is obviously very exciting, and we think points to the fact that there is a strong desire for school food programs across the province. Educator resources are a focus as well. 3 new resources are set to be launched this year. And then here are 3 popular resources frequented by teachers and community for food organizations across the province. An important part of the work that we do is sharing stories and supporting connections and knowledge sharing across the province. If you have not done so, we encourage you to sign up to our social media platforms and our regional monthly newsletters. You can do all of this at our website. And each one of our newsletters is tailored to the health region that you live in. And those go out monthly. So I encourage you all to sign up. One of our main initiatives to start this year is the Great BC School Food Cook-Off. That has now concluded, And, we just want to give everyone a huge round of applause for all the students and educators across BC who participated. We have received 91 recipe submissions, all featuring local ingredients. And later this month, on April 17th, same time as this presentation, we will be hosting a webinar to celebrate the launch of the BC School Food Cookbook, along with other resources. So we encourage you to sign up for that as well. At this, we are also inviting some schools to come and share about their experience designing and cooking their recipes. So that's Farm to School BC. I'm going to hand it over to Matthew now in just a minute. And so I want to introduce Matthew. I've gotten the great opportunity to meet him and talk with him over the last, 6-8 months or so. And so Matthew is the Executive Director of the Flourish School Food Society. At Flourish, they aim to provide tailored food service to meet schools where they're at and support the slow development of a nourishing school food environment. Among many other fruitful accomplishments, Matthew holds a Master of Arts in Environmental Education and Communication, led the Life Cycles Project Society, and for years has acted as a school garden coordinator in School District 62 in Sook, BC. Following Matthew's presentation, which is coming up right now, we do plan to have a few minutes for questions. And so you can either put up your hand virtually, or type them into the chat and we'll read them out along with Matthew. So that's enough from me. Matthew, I'm going to hand it over to you. So I'm going to stop sharing your screen and you can get yourself going.
Great. All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Matthew Kemshaw, as Quentin said. I'm the Executive Director of the Flourish School Food Society. I'm here today coming to you live from the stolen lands of the Lekwungen-speaking people of the Songhees and Esquimalt Nation. It's a beautiful time of the year in this part of the world on southern Vancouver Island. I've been working in my front yard to try to establish a native plant meadow after a bunch of destruction around my property. We were building a little garden suite in the backyard for my mother-in-law, and it's been really exciting to see all of the native plant seeds that I scattered in the fall starting to come up, and the sea blush has just started flowering in the last 24 hours. So I stepped outside this morning to see the first emerging flower buds of sea blush in my front yard. So it's a really exciting time to see all of our plants, poking their heads up and starting to flower and blossom around here. I've been asked to make this presentation about the work that we've done at Flourish. Flourish is an organization that is relatively young. We've been around just for just under 2 years, really. We were formally established in May of 2023, and we've grown really fast to support school food programming in our region. So the Flourish School Food Society, while it is relatively young, it's been born out of a huge amount of collaborative work that's happened in this region over a period of my professional life. I guess you could say spanned just over 20 years, where I've been invested in trying to support and develop healthy school food environments. As Quentin said, I have a history of working in school garden programming in the past. And I want to acknowledge, I guess, that while we are young, our work is supported by quite a broad group of people and organizations. And all of those folks have helped to shape our vision of a region in which all students can access and learn from nourishing food. With our partners, we've developed an organization that can basically do 3 things. So we started out with the development of a central kitchen program where we could offer fun, nourishing meals to schools. We started out with a pilot program serving the Souk School District, and we've grown really quickly to the point where we're now producing just over 1,100 home-cooked meals every single school day and distributing those out to, I actually just did the count, it's actually 23 schools served. We have 6 professional chefs and 3 drivers on the road distributing that food every single day, every single school day. We started with that kitchen program and realized quite quickly that schools need more than just, a lovely hot lunch. They also need groceries to support other kinds of food programming in the school. So we've grown a grocery program that aggregates and distributes food out to schools. We're actually providing grocery items now to 30 schools each week. These are foods that support breakfast and snack programs, and we are providing enough food to provide about 2,800 servings of food per day across those 30 schools. And then we do also support a lot of food literacy programming. We have kind of three kind of pillars of our food literacy programming. The biggest one right now is our school garden program support. We support 19 school gardens in various interesting ways. And that work reaches just over 4,000 students and about 150 teachers each year. We have 2 full-time garden coordinators who do that. We're also developing programming to support cultural connection through food. So we actually have a big event at one of our elementary schools next week where we're bringing a bunch of cultural food makers together to host a really fun, engaging event to gather input from families to help us understand how we can support more cultural connection through food in school. So that's an interesting area I'm excited about. And then we also do support resources, distribution of best practices or good practices, I like to say, and professional development for teachers to help ensure that they're knowledgeable and able to serve our food in good ways in schools. This is a little bit about what Flourish School Food Society does in a nutshell for you. Our vision of school food program development really centers on the power of local knowledge. We really feel that being rooted in place is important to the development of a truly nourishing school food program. A truly nourishing school food program is fed by and supported by place. And so we've I and I think a lot of the people on this call are friends and people I've worked with. I can say all of us probably have advocated to support a regional approach to the development of school food programming, and one that's empowered by capable facilities, caring people, and an enduring commitment to collaboration. So I think it's also important maybe to acknowledge that maybe within our region, we don't need 100 tiny little things happening to support school food program development or 100 tiny little organizations. Having a couple well-resourced organizations to serve a region strikes me at least as being a very good approach to developing school food programs. We're in this interesting place in our, I guess, our political history in British Columbia and in Canada, where the government is investing in the development of school food programs. And so there's a lot of people who are interested in figuring out how do you do it. And I want to say emphatically that developing capacity for regions to be able to support their place is a good way to go about doing it. And we've actually supported the development of an open source guide to building a community-rooted school food program. We've been supported by Food Banks BC to share sort of the learnings, I guess, that we've accumulated over the 2+ years that we've been doing our work here in the capital region, and offering those learnings to anyone who's interested. Essentially, they wanted us to create a blueprint for how to create a school food program. And we've done just that. And so this is actually a really exciting presentation for me because it's the first time that I get to share some of the content that's been created to put into this guide. And I'm really, I guess I'm really nervous and also really excited to share this with you today. And I hope that some of what we've put quite significant effort into will find interest, I guess, out there in the province. It's always difficult to know if it will. So the rest of this presentation is going to be sharing a bit of the content of our open source guide for creating a community-rooted school food program. And it really starts with some guiding principles. So over the course of our work and through a long sort of collaborative process of talking with a lot of people, we've kind of narrowed in on these 3 core guiding principles for the development of a school food program. This is an open source guide, so I want to just stress that we've probably missed some things, and we really hope that this is a platform potentially to be able to facilitate conversation. And I certainly don't want to um, to think that we know everything. I think this is an opportunity for us to learn a lot from people, and I really would love to hear your input and your thoughts on what's missing or what could be tweaked, and how can we work together to continue to develop, I guess, our thinking about how we create place-based, regionally supported school food programs. But here's our first thoughts. The guiding principles are key. And for us, these three guiding principles are dignity, connection, and choice. So for dignity, it's obviously very important that when accessing a school food program, those who are accessing it feel dignified in being able to access it. And I think one part of this is that everyone participates, not just singling out the needy from the rest. That obviously has a huge power to stigmatize. We want to make sure that everyone is able to participate. Everyone does participate. Another really important part about creating a program with dignity is that the food is good. When you just give students a whole bunch of Mr. Noodles or a bunch of really crappy processed food, the experience of receiving that food is not very good. When you give students lovingly made, locally sourced, scratch-cooked lunches that smell and taste delicious, the experience of receiving that food is much different, and you feel proud to be given this loving meal. So it's really important that the food is good. And the food needs to be served without judgment. Food should be served in a caring way where there's no judgment at all put on who or is accessing the program. Another important principle is connection. We want the food to be able to create connection. It's served by adults who care, and there's time to eat and to tell stories. We're really pushing for at least 20 minutes for students to be able to eat, so they have the time not just to eat, but also to pause and talk, right? That's what food and sharing food should be about. It allows for connection. We also want to make sure that there's connection to the people and the places that made the food. So understanding where your food comes from, who is it that made the food? Why does that recipe or this meal to them, what does it mean to them? Where was the food grown? Who grew the food? What places were involved? And then we also want to try to support programs in which students can actively participate so that they feel a sense of connection, perhaps even a sense of ownership over the program. And the final principle for us is choice. Students get to choose what they eat from several options. So it's not just here's a bag of food, this is what you get. It's here's a bunch of things, what do you want? And then the other thing is that students choose to come to the food themselves. The only person who knows that they're hungry or they need food is the person themselves. You can't decide who does or doesn't come to the program or get the food. Everybody should get to come to the food by their own choice. So these are some of the emerging, I guess you could say, guiding principles that help inform the development of our work at Flourish School Food Society. And then we have kind of a bit of, in our guide, we call it a rationale or what a school food program should be about. And this is certainly not comprehensive, but is an interesting list, I guess. For us, financial sustainability has been a really core kind of piece. We want to develop a program that isn't dependent on charity, that doesn't rely on grants or fluctuations of volunteers, that has a business kind of a sound business, foundation so that it can operate sustainably without stress. And then we want to develop programs that promote equity and inclusion, that truly tackle systemic oppression. And one of the really big ways in which systemic oppression manifests in schools, I think, is through students being inadequately, like diversely able to learn. When you're really hungry, you're not able to learn. Feeding students is actually a really important way to level the playing field and to actually tackle some of the systemic sort of forces that serve to oppress certain groups of people in our society. We also want to support learning. Obviously, this is a school food programming, and so supporting healthy minds, healthy bodies, and healthy communities is really important. We also really kind of want to build something that can support environmental and social responsibility. So we're taking care of the land, we're taking care of each other, we're making sure that the people who are providing the food are well supported, that the places, the environments, all of the living beings that are part of our food system are taken care of. And then we want to develop programs that are culturally responsive, that foster cultural sharing and promote a sense of inclusion among all the students who are in a school. So these are some of the high level, you could say, founding principles and rationale that have guided the development of our work. The next 5 slides are all about kind of the steps, the phases that we've gone through to develop our school food program. We've actually developed little books for each one of these phases. I'm going to very quickly fly through some of the things that are in there and remind you that we've just developed this open source guide. And at the end of my presentation, I'm going to be collecting information to hopefully be able to mail it to you. We've developed this really cool kind of pizza box. It's a unique communications sort of document that you can open and engage with and get to actually see these books. We're also going to have a digital version of the guide where you can just stare at your computer screen and read it. But we really feel that the print, the real thing is the way to engage with this guide. And so I hope all of you will provide me your mailing address so I can send you the guide. Anyway, step 1 of the guide is planning, developing a mission, vision, goals, and objectives, kind of the foundation of developing any kind of an organization or intervention. And so our guide kind of goes into detail about some things to think about with that. Assessing community needs is obviously really important and something that we took very seriously when we were developing the Flourish School Food Society. We didn't even know we were developing the Flourish School Food Society at first. There was about 5 years in which I was involved with a ragtag group of community members trying to figure out how we could support healthy school food environments in our region. We got more and more organized and mobilized. I led a study in which we looked at what was happening across our region, interviewed about 30 people, and published this big report. That was a really important first step in starting to assess our community needs, but it never stops. We continue to evaluate, to reach out, to seek input and feedback, and this is a really, really important part of developing a school food program. Our guide goes into detail about some of the steps we took and some of the resources, I guess, that we found helpful in doing that. Communicating the vision has also been a very important part of planning. It helps build buy-in. It helps build partnership when you're able to clearly, articulately, and I guess, motivatingly and sort of communicate your vision. And that flows into building school and community partnerships to help you do what it is that you want to do. And then funding and financial management has been super duper key. We've actually developed some really, I think, quite useful resources. Many of you have probably already heard me talk about these things. The financial model that we built with the Scale Collaborative is this very fancy spreadsheet that has helped us to price our meals to schools. So we've developed sort of a social enterprise approach to providing meals to schools, in which schools pay us $7.20 for the provision of a really beautiful serving of a hot entree and a cold salad that's served in a buffet style in a hotel pan. Our financial model was the key to pricing that lunch, and has allowed us to, I guess, confidently set a price that we know is going to allow us to sustainably grow and feed our goals. And as part of the open source guide that we've created easy links to all of our useful documents. And so we're making that financial model available, as well as our budgeting and annual financial reporting templates. So you can find links to those spreadsheets in our guide. Excited to be able to share everything that we've done. So that's phase 1, planning. Phase 2 is the setup. So actually starting to get going with building something to provide food to schools. We set up in a very capable commercial kitchen. I think having a central kitchen is, for a lot of school districts, something that they're looking at. A lot of our schools in BC have not been built with adequate kitchen facilities to provide food to very many people. So having an adequate kitchen is obviously super duper important. We provide lots of information on the kinds of equipment that we find most useful, and yeah, some of the things to think about in setting up a kitchen. What kinds of equipment might you want to consider? We talk here also about regulatory compliance, so working with environmental health officers and other kind of business planning to ensure that you're exceeding sort of health standards for food safety and for operating a food business or operation. And then set up also, we talk about food sourcing and how to go and get good food to serve to schools. This is obviously a really important part of running a school food program, is figuring out where you can get good food and where you can get it at a good price, right? So there are lots of resources around that. We also talk a lot about building your team, and we at Flourish have been pretty fiercely passionate about building a very capable staff team. We've tried to create our operations not, like I've said before, to depend on charity. And a part of that has been to hire very capable staff who can do the job and provide lots of great food to schools at a really good price and not depend on ebbs and flows of volunteers. I know volunteers have done all kinds of incredible work. I just listened last night to Fatima from Nourish Couch and talk about her hundreds of volunteers who serve schools in the Cowichan Valley, and it's incredible that she's able to manage that circus. I really have a huge amount of respect for people who who depend heavily on volunteers. We do have volunteers. We have about 40 volunteers who participate in our work, but we've built a team now that has over 100 years of experience in food service, and they are the backbone of our work. And as the executive director of this organization, I feel a very profound sense of calm knowing that we have such capable professionals doing the job, the important work of serving students in our region really beautiful meals. So setup, those are some of the things we talk about in our guide. The next step, phase 3, is getting ready to launch. And here in the guide, we talk a lot about sort of our thinking about service implementation in schools. And there's a real challenge when it comes to running a school food program, I've found, in getting the food from the door of the school into the students' bellies. A lot of folks who are trying to provide food to schools think about it's our job to get the food to the door, but actually schools are these very complex places that haven't had to serve food really ever in the memory of the people who work there. And now they're being asked to do this thing that doesn't fit with the way the school has traditionally functioned and the systems that have been built to make it function. And so it's a real interesting systems problem to support the food getting from the door into the students' bellies in a way that doesn't cause pain. And then in addition to that, not just not causing pain, but actually doing it in a way that makes it feel really nourishing and connecting. And we're still very much working on that. It's very hard to work within the confines of the school system as currently structured to create a truly nourishing school food program. But we've learned quite a bit, and we try to share what we've learned in our guide around how to support schools in a way that doesn't turn them off, because that's not what you want to do, obviously, but that helps in a compassionate way them to take steps to integrate food into the culture, the fabric of the day at school. And so there's some communicating that has to happen to these different partners within schools, students, staff, and parents, obviously. And then we think more in our guide about how to support stigma-free access to food in schools. It's such a challenge when we have a finite amount of resources that's meant specifically to support those most vulnerable. What we have right now is that we have a nice amount of money from the government that's supporting school food program development, but it's not enough to create what the universal school food for everyone. And so especially we find those schools that have very sort of significant numbers of students who are so-called vulnerable and really like struggling to get access to nourishing food. It can be hard to know how to offer the food without like saying it's only for a certain amount of people. And so we've been really trying to figure out how to do that, how never to single students out. We really try to encourage our schools never to create lists, right? We don't want them to have a list of, here's all the kids in need. If you're on the list, you can have food. If not, tough luck. That is a shitty experience for the people who are on the list. And what we know is that means that there's a lot of students who aren't going to identify, a lot of families who aren't going to identify. They're too proud or they don't want to have that shitty experience. And so they just never get the food. And so when you create that setup, you actually end up not providing food to a whole bunch of the people that need it the most. And so we've been really working to try to encourage schools to kind of find what fits best within their unique context, to give schools play and room to figure it out. Like, we want to offer, these are the concerns, these are the things we've seen other schools do. Here's a bunch of resources, supports, like, and you guys figure it out. Like, we don't want to be too prescriptive. Not very many principals like being told what to do, and very few people, I find, actually, human beings tend to not really like to be told what to do. So it's important to sort of let people figure it out on their own in some way a little bit. So our guide, provides a bunch of our thinking around these things. Phase 4, fun part of actually preparing and delivering food. I think the thing that there's lots of things that bring tears to my eyes regularly about this work, and it's often just thinking about the amazing, the amazing amount of commitment and passion that people put into developing these programs. And I can't see you all now, but I know there's a bunch of people who I know on this call who are these people, right? Who have just done so much to make it possible to feed these thousands and thousands of kids. And one of those people for me is our head chef, Ali Ryan, and she's made this incredible accomplishment, which is these, like, so many recipes, and so much love has gone into the development of our our menus and our recipes and the processes behind them. And I feel just like an overwhelming amount of gratitude to be able to share that with the world. And yeah, I hope it lands with somebody, because Ali has put so much work into it, and it's just so beautiful. So there's other things too in this phase, around logistics. We've got an online ordering system that supports our grocery program, which is a really beautiful system that makes things really slick, and I think could be useful for others. We've also got 3 vans on the road every day, and so our delivery systems and the logistics around that may be interesting to some people. So we've tried to share as much as we can about those kinds of things in our guide. Sorry, I've become very emotional. The final part of our guide, book 5, phase 5, just the shortest part is sustaining the program. The shortest part because we're young and we're still trying to figure it out. We have systems in place to manage crises. One thing we've learned is that sometimes drivers drop a meal, sometimes the road gets shut down, sometimes the power goes out. So what do you do in those situations? The power outage one was a bit scary for us because we realized we couldn't connect with any of the schools, and some of our food had already gone, but it wasn't being heated in the schools anymore. So it becomes a real food safety concern. So you have to really think about contingency planning for emergencies. And we've tried to share some of the contingency plans that we've developed in those emergencies in our guide. Another thing that I'm really passionate about is evaluation and monitoring and continuing to assess how we're doing. We've done quite a bit of evaluation, and we're kind of ramping up our evaluation work right now, and we'll have a little bit more for us and to share if anybody's interested in the coming weeks. But it's obviously a very, very important part of not just like learning how to do things, but also engaging the community and creating a sense of collective ownership over the program. I find it's really important to let people know that we really care about what you think and how you think this should be run and what kinds of foods we should be serving. And we want your input and feedback, and we want you to be a part of this, and giving people meaningful opportunities to contribute and to provide input and help creates buy-in, right? It makes everybody feel like they're a part of it. And so we're trying to use this like evaluation to support that. So it's like a participatory action sort of approach. And then we wrote our guide with this amazing organization called Scale Collaborative. And so they've got a lot of insight about scaling and supporting like sound business planning and a social entrepreneur kind of mindset. And so there's some interesting insights in our guide related to scale and growth of school food programs. And I've gone through that really quickly. So I'm at the last slide, and I want to invite everybody who is interested in receiving a print and or digital copy of our open source guide to building a community-rooted school food program to please provide your contact details in the provided form. We're going to share a link in the chat in which you can put your details in. I really encourage you to put your mailing address in. We're making 100 of these boxes. They're pretty cool. And I'd love to actually mail you a physical copy of the resource because we're wacky and a bit different in that way. We like tangible, real things. The guide, this open source guide that I've been talking about and sharing you a little sneak preview of what's in it, it was written by Scale Collaborative with huge amounts of input from me and Ali and the rest of our team at Flourish School Food Society. And the design and the creative direction has been led by Ross Alexander Whalen. Sorry, I get emotional thinking about all these people who have put in such passion to make this work possible. And the work has been supported very generously by Food Banks BC, who have support through the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. My information is there on the screen. You're welcome to give me a call at any time. I prefer daytime hours, but any time is fine. And my email address, you can email me anytime. Our website is there. And I think I'll just leave it there and allow lots of time for questions. There's a question for Mary here in the chat, which asks, how do you handle food allergies at schools? This is a very good question. We ask schools to handle the serious allergies. We encourage students who have life-threatening allergies not to participate in our program because it's such a risk. Our kitchen is completely nut-free and peanut and nut-free. We do have some seeds that come in there. Very, very seldomly do we have shellfish in the kitchen. We never use shellfish, but we're in a shared kitchen space right now, which is a part of a larger, even more shared warehouse space, which is a big kind of community food hub. So given the sharing nature of our space, there's only so much control that we can have over these things. And so that's why we recommend, if you have a life-threatening allergy, don't risk it. With that said, we have detailed menus, and then we have actually even more detailed spreadsheets that outline all of the ingredients in all of our food. So if there are any allergies, all of the staff who serve our food can go and find the details about what's in all of our food. You can find that on our website at flourishschoolfood.ca/menu or menus. I can't remember. Serena asks, what is your average number of servings of a meal do you send to each school? The minimum number of meals that we do at a school is 20, and the maximum number right now is 120. And I would say the average is about 50 to 60. Does that math add up? Yeah, something like that. Do you have resources for another company who can provide food for those with severe allergies? Um, where are you, Mary? Salmon arm. I'm sorry, no, I don't know salmon arm at all. Often when you're looking for a company who can provide food for those with severe allergies, you're looking for somebody who has a very, very controlled kitchen space. And there's not very many commercial food providers who can satisfy all allergy requests. Depends on the allergy. Oh, thank you, Madison. There's some other questions that have been starred further up. Let's get to those. Do you do this only with Feeding Futures funding, or do you have other funding sources? So we certainly have a lot of Feeding Futures funding. We also have some grant funds that support our development. We don't depend on the grants to do the baseline work that we do, but we've used grants to help us purchase vehicles and improve our kitchen facilities and do some of the food literacy programming that we do. And then we also are increasingly getting given money by people who want to donate to us. We're a charity now, so we're starting to attract people, which is really interesting because we don't really reach out to get that money very often. So it's cool that people are excited to give us some money. It's a pretty small drop in the bucket in the overall, though, the donation piece right now. Who at Flourish, what role is helping schools figure out how to provide stigma-free access? So as the executive director, I've been really hands-on involved in supporting our schools. I have really good relationship with with all of our schools. I know all of the principals on a first name basis and at least 4 staff in each of the schools, and I meet with them pretty regularly. So but then we also have an operations manager, Kat, who's recently come on, who's also fantastic, and she does a lot of that work. And then we have 2 food literacy staff who are in the gardens, and they're also really knowledgeable in supporting schools and wrapping their heads around how to do this well. And then we do professional development. We have a number of contractors who work with us here and there from the community who come in and do different things with schools. So it's a team approach. And then we're also trying to connect schools like, hey, this person here is great in this school. They have something they can share with this school. So we do quite a bit of that, like helping schools connect with other schools. Some kids love Mr. Noodles. I wonder if staff should be explicitly mentioned in connection. Staff play a big role in student buy-in. Yeah, for sure, they do. Yeah, one of our principles connection was that food is served by caring staff. I think it's so important that there's a staff connection. Some kids do love Mr. Noodles. It's not really very good for you though, and it's not very good food. And getting Mr. Noodles every day doesn't feel good. Just offer DAL for students with allergies. The thing about offering food to students with severe life-threatening allergies is that you have to make sure there's no contaminants. Like a severe life-threatening allergy means that any touch of any contaminant, and when you have a program like ours, which is a central kitchen where there's a driver delivering the food, it's hard to control all the contaminants. Which is I love that food, like we should be cooking more food in schools and getting students doing it hands-on, and like the kids with allergies should be making their own food in their own controlled space. That would be the best. Does your service are only for the island? Yeah, so we are focused on providing our service for the capital regional district, or the capital region on southern Vancouver Island. So south of sort of the Malahat, if you know the region, from the community of Souk in the west to North Saanich in the north to sort of Oak Bay in the southeast. That's our geographical reach. in terms of the provision of food. We see a role for ourselves in being able to help share and support other communities and other places. I'm curious if anybody's interested in talking to me in other places about that. So understand that circus is a figure of speech. I think it's disrespectful to refer to a large group of audience. Yeah, that's true. There's much to be said about the value of showing up to feed children without receiving monetary compensation. I totally agree, Kirsten. I do think that was flippant of me to refer to it as a circus. I've worked for 20 years in organizations that are dependent more or less on volunteers, and I've led those organizations, and I have a lot of experience with trying to keep the work happening with a constantly rotating pool of volunteers. And I personally am not good at it. And I think there's a bit of my own maybe insecurity in that came out there. Um, and I did say that I have huge respect for people who can do it, and Fatima is somebody who absolutely astounds me. I have no idea how she does what she does. She's the most amazing person, I think. Um, and the work they do is such a huge inspiration to what we do. Yeah, I'm really sorry that that came across in a disrespectful way. You're right.
I just put a question in there. We have about 8 minutes left. I just put a question in there. I can just read it off too, is can you spend a couple minutes talking about how you moved from a pilot program to eventually 23 schools? The reason I'm curious about that is like I'm out in the far east corner of the province. I've talked to a lot of schools in the Kootenays, and I've seen some pilots that don't go beyond that initial phase. And so it's really encouraging to see that kind of growth. And so I just was wondering if you could spend a couple minutes talking about how you went from pilot to more.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good question. When we built the pilot, we envisioned going, right? Like we didn't think that we were going to be at a small number of schools with a relatively small number of meals served. We built it to be able to scale because we felt that it was a service that schools kind of needed, given that they didn't have the facilities to be able to provide food from their buildings, or the staff to do that. So that was an important part of being able to go from the pilot into a period of growing. We built the systems to be able to support that growth. Um, and that looked like making sure we had like the space was really important, like the capacity of our kitchen and our systems, like our logistical systems to be able to support distribution of food, and making sure we had like the physical infrastructure. And then we worked really to try to figure out what's the next pinch point, like how many meals can we do until we get to a place where we can't grow anymore, and then what is the pinch point? And for the first, from 200 meals basically for us right to 1,100 meals, the pinch point has been more or less staff and having the support to make the food. And now we're at a point where our pinch point is actually oven space. And so we're looking at getting into a new kitchen, which has more oven space to allow us to continue to grow. And so it's been understanding where those pinch points are, and having the professional food service chefs has been so useful in understanding those steps to growth and being able to plan for them. The chef minds, we had sort of like a team of nonprofit chefs who helped us build our pilot. And they're like sitting in the room with them and getting like hearing them figure out how to do this thing. It was mind blowing for me. I'm not a chef, and I have no idea how to do this. If it was just me, it would have failed miserably. Um, it was the chefs who figured it out, and the people who had decades of experience with doing food service, that made it possible, I believe. Another question from Serena. do students sign up for your program, or do schools choose the students and can participate, or how is it offered in the school? It varies really school to school, Serena. So with our lunch, we've got 23 schools, and then there's another 7 schools that we just provide groceries to. And the schools, in the end, the simple answer is the schools decide. And then the way they decide which students get the program is very varied. I would say there's probably about 10 different kind of like common models, but there's variation within. And we really try to encourage the schools, like I said, to not create a list or have it be certain students. To like, basically it's like, we have food, and if you want some, come and get it. And we really try to encourage the schools to kind of offer it in that way. And a lot of our schools do. But then some of them have gotten to the point where they're like, uh-oh, there's too many students who want food. And now we have to figure out, like, some of the kids are coming with a perfectly good lunch that their parents made for them. They're looking at their lunch, they're looking at what we're offering, and they're putting their lunch in the trash, and they're getting what we're offering. And, that's not a good situation. So how do you manage that? And we try to support our schools to figure out how to do it. It's a very complicated thing. We should go for a drink sometime and talk through it. I really like to pick your brain about it. We have 3 vehicles that we use right now. We have a Ford Transit van, which is my favorite one. We have a Dodge ProMaster. I would never, ever recommend buying a Dodge ProMaster. It's terrible. And then we have a GMC Savannah van, which is described in one of the reviews I read as like a plumber's wrench. It's like a tool that hasn't changed ever. And it does the job really well, but it's kind of small and capable. But we like the higher roofs. The transit vans are pretty good.
We have one last question there, Matthew, but it's yeah, from Fan.
Mhm.
If you want to answer that, and then I think we can wrap it up for the day.
The large one, Serena. Yeah. So our approach toward providing culturally relevant, appropriate food is evolving and I guess complex. We work closely with the English language learner department in the school district to understand where newcomer families are coming from, and where what languages students are speaking at home. And that helps give us some insight into where large populations of sort of culture, I guess, are coming from, and making sure that we can have those cultures represented on the menu a little bit more frequently. And then we work with the Natsamat Indigenous Education Department in the Souk School District to get input from their Indigenous Elders Circle. Um, we've we've tried to learn a lot from listening and learning from others. And so there's some organizations locally. EA Creative is one that we work a lot with, who does a lot of work in trying to support their approach is beautiful, because it's about supporting cultural foods, but also supporting connection back to the land. And we really love their work, and we learn a lot from them. We're doing some events where we're hoping to gather input from families. We get feedback and input through evaluation mechanisms from staff, parents, and students. And we ask questions that try to I guess in a good way, gather like recommendations on how can we provide culturally relevant, appropriate food. And then we also try to invite guest chefs to come in and work with our team to teach us. Like, we had Kwasanahan, Jared Williams from Cowichan come and spend a day with our team to help us think through how we could incorporate more Indigenous foods into what we do. We look at the cultural calendar too, and we try to highlight different foods through the year at different times. And we have different days that, we do a special thing on the Lunar New Year, for instance, or lots of these different moments through the year we highlight, and then we provide posters and resources that go with the food. Um, and then we also try to hire diverse people on our team, so that we're bringing in different knowledges and cultures. And there's other things too, but that's
Yeah,
some of the things we do.
I appreciate all of that, Matthew. So yeah, so from Farm to School BC, from everybody else, thank you for your presentation, Matthew. Everybody else, thank you for attending. Yeah, we're at time now. I'm gonna put Matthew's to access the Flourish open source guide in the chat just one last time. I
That's
really
fine.
would encourage everybody to sign up to receive it. Matthew, you know, I'm a huge fan of everything that you have done. I think it's incredible. I think it's replicable. I'm really looking forward to seeing this guide. I think that's all I have to say. So let's sign off. At the end of the day, thank you again, everybody, for taking this hour. Thank you, Matthew, for the presentation. It really was really fantastic, eye-opening, everything. So with that, I think let's sign off and enjoy our evenings.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much.